Mark your calendars for Thursday, March 22nd. Michael Voris is speaking in Denver, Colorado at the Crowne Plaza Hotel and Convention Center. Michael's topic is Masculinity and Catholicism, How to Embrace the Authentic Catholic Faith. Come early, as seating is limited. Doors open at 6 p.m.
Hello everyone and welcome to The Vortex, where lies and falsehoods are trapped and exposed. I'm Michael Voris. A slight caution to begin today's episode. Some people might find the topic today a little disturbing, so we want to give you a heads up. As we discussed in yesterday's Vortex, we're going to spend a few episodes on the topic of masturbation. The reason is that this subject is almost never discussed openly because of its deeply personal nature and possible embarrassment. But it is a very serious topic, because a very large number of young viewers, many of them male, follow RealCatholicTV.com with some degree of regularity. It shouldn't be a surprise that we receive a not insignificant number of emails or even in-person communications about this topic. It almost always comes up in one form or another whenever there's a group of young people around, like, for example, just this past weekend when we were in Toronto speaking at a youth Lenten retreat. One young person wrote a question down on a slip of paper for the Q&A session after the talk and asked if we could have the church's teaching explained clearly and what actually is the church's teaching. The simple truth about this teaching is that it has not been stated clearly from the pulpit or in the confessional, for that fact. It's been a bit of an eye-opener, the number of young people who have said to us that some priests routinely dismiss the gravity of this sin, some going as far as to say that it is even a sin at all. Well, that's wrong. Masturbation is a grave misuse, or even more plainly said, abuse of our sexual powers. We talked about some of the spiritual aspects of this in yesterday's Vortex, and we'll come back to that discussion later in the week. But for today, it might be helpful to talk about the psychological aspects of this particular action, especially if it becomes a habit. A grave consequence of masturbation is that it turns the person's thoughts in on himself by creating a fantasy world, a retreat into a private arena of sexual power where everything revolves around personal bodily pleasure, and any other people that are present in the mind in this fantasy world are figments of the imagination or imagined versions of actual people. A continued and repeated retreat into this world can tend to obscure the thoughts of a young man or woman when they are in the real world. They can easily begin to transfer their fantasies onto actual people and begin to lose touch with those people's realities. They begin to see them, at least in part, as something different from and less than what they actually are. That is wrong, very wrong. Moreover, because of the pleasure associated with this sexual release, it becomes a reinforcing behavior and habit, and it has the added dimension and threat of becoming a place where a young man or woman and their developing mind can go to escape the inevitable pain and hurt associated with growing up. The habit of masturbation has all the earmarks of becoming a trap, psychological as well as physical. It can quickly become a place to hide from pain and emotional hurt, to create a world where fantasy replaces reality, all reinforced by intense physical pleasure. Not only is this a dangerous situation for anybody, it poses an especially difficult challenge for a Catholic, or any Christian for that fact. The road through life for a follower of our blessed Lord is one strewn with suffering, not just suffering for its own sake, but for the sake of the other. Suffering and pain serve a purifying role for the follower of Christ, so they are not aspects of reality to run from, but rather to be embraced and incorporated into one's life. This isn't to say that somebody needs to go in search of suffering. We all know you don't need to do that. But you need to accept it and use it constructively when it does come into your life. But this is nearly impossible for the young soul trapped in a habit of masturbation. On the contrary, pain and suffering is viewed as something to be avoided at all costs, even to the creation of an alternate reality. How many young people find that they have developed the habit of this act and are thereby stunting their spiritual and psychological growth? The privacy often demanded and desired by the young can frequently involve this issue. For effective maturation of young people, an openness to the world, a willingness to engage with it is necessary. Any type of self-created alternate reality runs contrary to this whole schema. Even when a person is engaging with reality, if he's transferring aspects of his fantasy onto this world, the real world, his engagement is an immature one. This poses a very real danger to a young person as he moves into adulthood. Pain and a fantasy-driven desire to escape from it becomes too consuming for him to advance in such a way that he can establish healthy interpersonal relationships and view reality in a realistic way. People that he sees in the real world become objects that he manipulates in his fantasies. Add to all of this, as long as nothing stops this behavior, he never stands up like a man and confronts the pain in his life. He never learns to fight, but only to retreat. Sin not only has consequences in the next life, but in this life as well. Tomorrow we'll talk about the discouragement that often accompanies the young as they try to conquer this particular sin. God love you. I'm Michael Voris.